today's Think Tank, we cast the spotlight on the re-energized race to be Hong Kong's chief executive. The illegal basement scandal involving tycoon Henry Tang has opened up the contest to more players.
Well, former Security Secretary Regina Ip has now thrown in her hat into the ring, saying that she wants to give voters more choice. So to take a deeper look at the implications of the Henry Tang scandal, we have joining us in our studio tonight our resident analyst, Professor James Tang. No relation to Henry Tang. He is Dean of the School of Social Sciences at Singapore Management University, joining us tonight. So, Professor Tang, what other options do people in Hong Kong have apart from Henry Tang now that he's in some sort of trouble?
Well, there is, of course, the other leading candidate, C.Y. Leung, who has been challenging Henry Tang's candidacy. He probably would still be a very strong contender for the chief executive candidacy. But of course, initially most people who actually supported him, C.Y. Leung, thought that he won't have the chance to become chief executive because most of the people on the election committee seems to be in favor of Henry Tang. And many people would say that Henry Tang is probably Beijing's more favorite candidate.
Okay, so what is Beijing to do now then?
Beijing is in a very difficult situation because if Henry Tang continues to suffer from the scandals and also his popularity is really now plunging, to have him as chief executive when there are other candidates who have more popular support would really create a situation when if Henry Tang actually becomes the chief executive, then the whole issue of legitimacy, mandate, and how he could actually be able to carry out his duties as chief executive would be cast into serious doubt.
All right, well, speaking of that, the plunging popularity, but yet his determination to continue in the race, let's crystal ball gaze and say, assuming he does win the top job, what does it say about his leadership style?
Well, he is not known to be someone who has a very decisive approach to leadership and governance. And this is one of the reasons why people in Hong Kong describe the election as the election between the pig and the wolf. Describing Henry Tang as the pig, that is, it's not that clever. Whereas C.Y. Leung is, far more aggressive. But people, I think a lot of people who supported him thought that he would be a safe choice. He would maintain stability. He's not going to introduce too many changes to the system. He's not going to have revolutionary ideas. But now, with him in such deep trouble, some people might really pull out from supporting him.
All right, keeping in mind that Beijing promised universal suffrage by 2017, it says here, will Henry Tang, as the chief executive, speed this up or guarantee this universal suffrage?
I think most people probably would not doubt that by 2017 the chief executive would be elected by popular vote. The question, I think, has always been what kind of threshold would be there to screen out people who might not be acceptable to the Beijing leadership. But even with the election committee now, the pro-democracy camp candidate actually managed to secure enough nominations to become a candidate as well. So we actually now have the pro-democracy candidate as also a contender for the CE's position. So I don't think there would be dramatic changes in changing the timetable, because that would be the next CE election. But there would be more, I think, attention to what kind of criteria would have to be in place for the nomination of the candidates. I think that's probably where the focus will be.
All right. Well, Professor, you know what's interesting about this whole scandal? It has also thrown up the widening gap between the haves and the have-nots in Hong Kong, and also on the very sensitive issue of property prices here. What kind of reform must the government implement to address these public concerns?
Well, income disparity has become a very critical issue in Hong Kong. In opinion surveys, I think there are people who increasingly expressed views which are not often associated with Hong Kong, that they are, not happy with the wealthy people. Increasingly, I think there is this sort of frustration. And the government has not really been, I think, doing all it could in addressing this particular problem. The Henry Tang episode, actually, I think, is a good illustration of why people are so upset, because he's a wealthy, businessman. He could easily have, had that structure in his house being sort of popularly, accepted if he had, done the right things, and then he probably have to pay more to have more space in his house. But he had chosen not to. So I think that is part of that kind of public anger, that some people are wealthy, they can get away with things. So this question is also why the other contender, C.Y. Leung, has been able to gain popular support, because he's sort of, running on the platform that he would try to address some of these issues a bit more decisively. So I think this will remain quite a critical problem for Hong Kong politics for quite some time to come.
All right, it gives them ammunition then against Henry Tang. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us this evening. Our resident analyst there, Professor James Tang from the Singapore Management University.
So ahead on Primetime Asia tonight.